After nearly 460 days of devastating war, after the death of more than 46,000 Palestinians and thousands of Israelis, and after internal displacement of almost 1.9 million people in Gaza, finally, Israel and Hamas have agreed a ceasefire deal that will halt the conflict in Gaza and ensure the release of the remaining 98 hostages held by Hamas in the Strip. The ceasefire is brokered and guaranteed by the US, Qatar, and Egypt.
Well, the agreement on November was to build the momentum in order to lead for a longer-term agreement, which we have today. But unfortunately, the agreement in November was very transactional, so it was like a day by day. But this agreement has a clear mechanism for the first 42 days, and there's a clear mechanism to negotiate phase 2 and 3, and all the details of the agreement will be published in the next couple of days once the details are finalized.
Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani also announced that the ceasefire deal will take effect on January 19th, but that work on implementation steps with Israel and Hamas was continuing. The ceasefire agreement will be implemented in 3 phases. So what happens in the first phase? The first phase will last 6 weeks. It will include a limited exchange of prisoners, a partial withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, and an increase in aid to the area. 33 Israeli captives, including women, children, and civilians over 50 age, who were taken during the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel on October 7, 2023, will be released. In exchange, Israel will release a larger number of Palestinian prisoners, including individuals serving life sentences. Among those being released are approximately 1,000 Palestinians who were detained after October 7. Alongside the release of captives, Israel will pull back its troops from the populated areas of Gaza to locations no further than 700 meters within Gaza's border with Israel. Nonetheless, this may not apply to the Netzarim corridor, the heavily guarded zone that divides the Strip and governs movement throughout it. Israel will allow civilians to return to their residencies in the besieged northern region of the enclave, where humanitarian agencies have reported potential famine conditions. Additionally, aid deliveries to the enclave will be increased, the capacity to accommodate up to 600 trucks per day. Israel will also allow wounded Palestinians to leave the Gaza Strip for treatment and open the Rafah crossing with Egypt 7 days after the start of the implementation of the first phase. Israeli forces will reduce their presence in the Philadelphia corridor, the border area between Egypt and Gaza, and then withdraw completely no later than the 50th day after the deal comes into effect. Now, once the first phase is implemented, what about the second and the third phase? Detail of the second and the third phases, though understood to be agreed to in principle, are to be negotiated during the first phase. US President Joe Biden stated that the ceasefire will persist even if negotiations for the second and the third phase exceed the initial 6 weeks allotted for the first phase. Critically, Israel has insisted that no written guarantees be given to rule out a resumption of its attack once the first phase is completed and its civilian captives returned. However, as per reports, the 3 mediators involved in the talks, Egypt, Qatar, and the United States, have given Hamas verbal guarantees that negotiations will continue, and all the 3 would press for a deal that will see the second and the third stages implemented before an initial 6-week window has elapsed. But what exactly is planned for the second and third phase? If the conditions are met for the second phase, Hamas will release all the remaining living captives, primarily male soldiers, in exchange for the release of more Palestinians held in Israeli prisoners. The detail of a third phase remain unclear. The third and the final stage will involve reconstruction of Gaza, something which could take years, and the return of any remaining hostages' bodies. However, these conditions, which have yet to be voted upon by the Israeli cabinet, are at odds with the stated positions of many of the far right-wing members of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet, which he relies upon for support. There is currently no agreement over who will administer Gaza beyond the ceasefire. The United States has pressed for a reformed version of the Palestinian Authority to do so. But over here, another question rises. What next for Hamas and its role of Gaza? The agreement does not specify conditions to replace Hamas's role in Gaza. Netanyahu has so far objected to any efforts to facilitate the return of the Palestinian Authority or allow any other Arab or international consortium to run civilian affairs in the Strip. Hamas, for its part, has no interest in facilitating its replacement for other governing bodies and ceding control of Gaza. But having lost key members of its leadership over the course of the war, the militant group is in less powerful position than it was before October 7, 2023. As far as Middle East region is concerned, the Arab countries will surely welcome a ceasefire in the region, especially after the Israel-Hezbollah conflict and the dethrone of Assad in Syria. But is this the end of violence in the region? Unfortunately, no. Although Iran is economically and militarily weak right now, the issue of two-state solution between Israel and Palestine still continues.